A tariff is a tax placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad. When a government imposes a tariff, it means that imported products become more expensive for businesses and consumers to buy. This price increase often encourages people to choose American-made goods instead, since they can be cheaper than the imported alternatives. Tariffs are designed to protect domestic industries from foreign competition and can help local businesses grow. For centuries, governments around the world have used tariffs as a tool to manage their economies, influence trade relationships, and even as leverage in international negotiations. Tariffs have shaped the way countries interact and compete in the global marketplace. In early 2025, former President Trump made headlines by announcing a sweeping set of new tariffs. These tariffs ranged from 10% to as high as 50% and targeted nearly all of America's trading partners, marking one of the most aggressive trade policies in recent history. Trump argued that these tariffs would help reduce the U.S. trade deficit, which is the gap between what America imports and exports. He also claimed that tariffs would pressure countries like China, Canada, and Mexico to take stronger action against illegal drugs entering the United States. The new tariffs were put into effect rapidly, and their impact was felt almost immediately. Markets reacted, businesses scrambled to adjust, and the cost of many imported goods began to rise. By late summer, the U.S. government had collected a staggering $159 billion in revenue from these import taxes, more than double what was collected the previous year. This influx of money was touted as a major win by the administration. While the administration celebrated this as a success for American workers and businesses, critics quickly pointed out that the higher costs were often passed down to American companies and everyday consumers. Some industries struggled with increased expenses, and shoppers noticed price hikes on common goods. The debate over tariffs wasn't just about economics. It also raised important questions about government power. Specifically, who has the authority to create and enforce tariffs in the first place? According to the U.S. Constitution, Congress holds the power to lay and collect taxes, including tariffs. However, the Trump administration claimed it could act under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, which grants the president special authority during emergencies. IEEPA was originally designed to give the president extra powers in times of national crisis, such as war or natural disasters. Using it for trade policy was controversial and sparked intense debate. This set the stage for a major legal battle over whether the president could use emergency powers to impose broad tariffs without direct approval from Congress. The central question became, can a president use emergency powers to reshape trade policy and impose sweeping tariffs, or does that authority belong solely to Congress? Ultimately, the answer to this constitutional question would come from the nation's highest court, the Supreme Court, which agreed to hear the case. As the legal battle unfolded, the country watched closely, knowing that the outcome could reshape the balance of power between Congress and the president for years to come. The Supreme Court has blocked Trump's 2025 tariffs, ruling the president cannot use emergency powers to impose broad taxes on imports without Congress. The court's decision reaffirms that the power to tax belongs to Congress, not the executive. The justices said IEEPA does not let the president create a nationwide tax system under the guise of an emergency. This ruling immediately makes the 2025 tariffs illegal and ends a policy that reshaped American trade for months. The decision is a major check on presidential power and a reminder of constitutional limits. The message is clear. Even in an emergency, the president cannot bypass Congress to tax Americans. The Trump administration argued IEEPA gave the president broad authority to act in emergencies, including imposing tariffs to address threats like fentanyl and trade imbalances. They claimed swift action was needed, and that Congress could override the president if it disagreed. The administration said the threat of tariffs was a crucial tool in negotiations and national security. But critics argued this was an overreach, turning a law meant for targeted action into a way to bypass Congress on taxes. The Supreme Court ultimately rejected this expansive view of presidential power. A coalition of businesses and states challenged the tariffs, saying they were unconstitutional and devastating to their operations. Many businesses faced soaring costs and uncertainty, threatening jobs and survival. Their legal argument was simple: only Congress can impose taxes, and tariffs are taxes. They argued IEEPA was never meant to let the president create broad tariffs, just to freeze assets or block transactions in emergencies. Using IEEPA for tariffs, they said, was a legal loophole that undermined the Constitution. States joined the lawsuit, warning of economic harm and job losses from higher prices. The case became a fight over the separation of powers and the economic health of the nation. The Supreme Court sided with the challengers, restoring Congress's authority. The ruling was a victory for both the Constitution and struggling businesses. The Supreme Court's decision has real-world effects for both consumers and businesses, touching nearly every corner of the economy. Whether you're shopping for everyday essentials or running a local store, this ruling is likely to impact your bottom line. For months, the cost of tariffs was passed down to shoppers, raising prices on everything from electronics to furniture. Many families felt the pinch at checkout, and small businesses struggled to keep up with rising costs. With the tariffs gone, prices on many imported goods should start to fall. Shoppers may soon notice lower price tags, making it easier to afford the products they need and want. Small and medium businesses, squeezed by unpredictable costs, now have more stability. This change allows them to plan ahead, invest in their growth, and pass savings on to their customers. Local shops and manufacturers relying on imports can better plan and compete. With fewer surprises in their expenses, they can focus on serving their communities and expanding their businesses. However, some U.S. industries that benefited from tariffs may now face tougher competition from abroad. For these workers and companies, the change could mean new challenges and the need to adapt quickly. Trade policy always creates winners and losers, but most consumers and importers will benefit from lower prices. Everyday goods, from groceries to household items, could become more affordable. The decision removes a major financial burden from the supply chain, helping businesses operate more efficiently and reducing delays caused by cost uncertainty. It's a lifeline for many businesses and a relief for shoppers. Lower costs mean more money in people's pockets and a better chance for local shops to thrive. The market will adjust over time, but the immediate impact is positive for most Americans, promising a more stable and affordable shopping experience for all. This ruling is a defining moment for the balance of power in the U.S. government. The Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to tax and raise revenue. The court's decision draws a clear line. Emergency powers can't be used to bypass Congress on taxes. Had the court ruled otherwise, any president could impose nationwide taxes by declaring an emergency. By blocking the tariffs, the court reasserts Congress's constitutional role and checks executive overreach. This case will shape future debates over presidential power and trade policy. The ruling doesn't stop the president from acting in true emergencies, but it prevents abuse of emergency laws. Major economic policies must go through Congress, not be enacted by a single person. With the tariffs struck down, the government now faces the daunting task of potentially refunding $159 billion to importers. This isn't just a simple transaction, it's a massive, complex process involving thousands of companies, countless legal reviews, and a mountain of paperwork. The logistics of returning such a huge sum will require coordination between federal agencies, financial institutions, and the businesses themselves. These refunds could have a significant impact on the federal budget, possibly forcing the government to make tough choices elsewhere. But for businesses receiving the money, it could mean a much-needed boost, helping them invest, higher, or even lower prices for consumers. The ripple effects could be felt across the entire economy. Politically, the court's decision puts intense pressure on Congress. Lawmakers must now decide whether to craft new tariffs or find alternative ways to protect American industries. The spotlight is on Capitol Hill, and every move will be closely watched by both businesses and voters. Passing new tariffs won't be easy. Congress is deeply divided, not just along party lines but also within parties, and the public is split as well. Some demand stronger protections for American jobs, while others warn against the risks of trade wars and higher consumer prices. The debate over free trade versus protectionism is far from over. Each side brings passionate arguments, and the outcome will shape the direction of U.S. economic policy for years to come. For now, the ruling offers short-term relief to importers and some stability to global markets. But it also leaves big, unresolved questions about the future of America's trade relationships and economic strategy. The Supreme Court has made it clear, only Congress has the authority to set broad trade taxes. This decision reaffirms the constitutional balance of power and sets a precedent for future trade disputes. The decision is a powerful statement about the rule of law and the limits of presidential power. It reminds us that even in times of economic uncertainty, the Constitution remains the ultimate guide. The separation of powers remains central to American democracy. ensuring that no single branch can act unilaterally on issues as important as trade. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. The future of U.S. trade will be shaped by these constitutional principles, and the ongoing debate will define America's place in the global economy.